This is the Doctors Who Read Stuff. My name is Chris.
And I'm Chip.
And I'm Brian.
And the trap has finally sprung. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Just
a little.
We
got to talk about drunk Duncan, Idaho, stumbling into the castle.
That was really interesting to me. It's like none of their intelligence said, hey guys, maybe don't drink the spice beer.
Yeah. Hey, it's a little strong.
It's like
6 point beer, you know,
it seems
or what was
like
the Goose Island? Yeah.
Oh, that one was like 15.2.
Yeah, the Goose Island, the special brew that Brian bought that night, and
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
I don't remember that night.
Yeah, but it was kind of like
that. Yeah, but that was interesting in that it kind of blew the lid off of Leto's whole campaign to make everybody think he was suspecting his not wife, partner, concubine,
his
consort.
His concubine.
So
nice.
Yeah. But so this was kind of a long section to me that really didn't accomplish much. I feel like Herbert could have achieved the same thing in about a third of the space.
I would agree. I mean, I felt like there was a lot of dialogue and a lot of pages, but not a lot of substance. I mean, like a lot of accusations. I feel like if I had to say one word for this, it was accusations, because Chezka thought that how it was doing something, and how it was thinking maybe Chezka was doing something, and
and I understand the intent. It's like he's trying to pit the Bene Gesserit against the Mentat and kind of bounce their abilities back and forth, and almost like this competition or this game. And for me, I don't think it worked. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were some really neat parts in here, but I just think it went on too long. But at the very beginning, like when she gets up and she hears something, the first thing she does is she checks her screen to make sure Paul's still sleeping. And I find it funny that even that far in the future, they still use baby monitors.
For 15-year-olds.
For 15-year-olds.
Who knows? Maybe I will in 9 years too. So, I don't know.
But out of an abundance of caution, they moved him down to the bunker.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting that they were so concerned that something was going to happen that they moved Paul all the way downstairs to the basement.
And Chezka actually puts her robe on and leaves the room when she hears people yelling. And at first I'm reading this and I'm like, this seems like that. It's kind of like the Eccleston season of Doctor Who where he says, Rose, stay here, and she just runs off. It kind of struck me as that sort of thing, but then I'm like, well, hold on. I suppose the fact that she's got the Chris knife and she has Bene Gesserit training, she's probably pretty formidable.
I think that she could probably handle herself.
Maybe not as foolish as I was first thinking, but yeah, the drunken Idaho thing just kind of upends all the work that was laid in the previous sections. Which is because fine. That put everybody in such an uncomfortable position.
And because he was more or less the ambassador. He was kind of the on the up and up, that sort of character. And I like the fact that he actually seems human, because he likes going and partying with attractive women in the evening, that sort of thing.
That's what I do in the evening.
Still?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean,
in the age of COVID.
Right. Granted, I mean, I'd live with this attractive woman. I'm married to her, so...
Oh, that's true. But still.
Yeah. Yeah, but as soon as she figures out what's going on, we get that conversation with Thufir in the conservatory, and the interesting part that I wanted to bring up was that Chezka, during the midst of this conversation, deduces that the Harkonnen attack is through this basic arrangement of all of their lives. She says humans operate best when they have their own place, when they know where they belong in the scheme of things. And like they have people second guessing each other, they have people doing what they don't normally do, and it's just throwing everybody off balance, and I think it's creating this element of instability, which I think is totally happening, but that's not the full brunt of the attack, because I think they're even discussing if there really even is a traitor at this point.
Yeah, well, then they start kind of going through the names of potential traitors, and they talk about Gurney, and they talk about Duncan, and they even talk about Yueh again. And I think that they had, not these two, but there's been conversations about who is the traitor before, But it can't be Yueh because, he's been through the Imperial conditioning. So he's been ruled out 2 or 3 times to this point.
Yeah.
And we already know because Herbert told us that, it is Yueh. Yeah. But, the Atreides don't know that. Right. But we, the reader, do. So it's just one of those that, how many times are they going to rule him out? It can't be him. But...
And Chezka takes some time and like gauges Hawat's reactions, and she's like, okay, clearly he's not the traitor. So she's like, okay, he's just doing what he thinks he should be doing. But he is like so fiercely loyal to the Duke, and is just like playing things so close to his chest and unwilling to eliminate her from the threat pool almost. So Hawat doesn't know that this is a ruse, does he? He thinks it's legit. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. But what was dragging for me is like she was like trying to get him to a place where she could quote unquote shock him. And it's like 3 or 4 times she's like, oh, he's almost ready. Oh, he's almost ready. Put the meat thermometer in. It's almost done. Okay. So that was... again, I think it just drug on too long. But she gets to the point where... And they don't come out and say this, but my assumption is she uses the voice on him when... at the very end. And like he's just like blown away that the power of her voice can just like... force his body to just instinctively listen to her and do what she says. That's pretty cool. I think we've heard like allusions to the voice, and I don't remember if the Reverend Mother used it in the beginning or not.
In the beginning, when he was doing the Gom Jabbar, he was facing the Gom Jabbar and the I thought the big reveal here, at least to the reader, and I can't remember if Chezka actually told Thufir or not, that she's carrying the Duke's daughter, that she's pregnant and somewhat...
Yes.
But like a few weeks along, so it's been probably since they've arrived on Arrakis, or maybe just before. But I know that she has that aside where she's thinking that's her trump card that she's going to play against him, but I can't remember if she actually does... Or if she still keeps it a secret. I didn't...
Correct.
She said she wasn't going to use that because Leto didn't know yet, and she didn't want...
Yeah. That was it.
She didn't want to
complicate. To me, that was kind of the big thing that we learned in that chapter, was that, she's carrying a daughter. So... Yep. And knowing that stuff's going to hit the fan here pretty soon, beginning actually in the other scene that we're going to talk about tonight, things start to change. So what does that mean for that unborn daughter?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but Thufir eventually leaves, and Chezka to herself is like, good, he's finally going to go and do something useful now. So she feels like she got him to a point where he's actually going to be like chasing the correct leads. So
But he thinks that he got her too
Right.
at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess.
so what? I am the bull and she the matador. Hawat thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just playing her as much as she thinks she's playing him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
But we
come down.
maybe did realize that, that she has a lot more power in the relationship than we originally thought. Not only just with the Duke, but also like literal raw power that she has the ability to crush his enemies, but chooses not to because her entire intent is to serve and not to be the destroyer.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good set of dialogue at the very end too.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of equated the voice. I'm sure you guys have heard it too when your kids haven't cleaned their room and the mom voice comes out like, "You do what I tell you," and like, I swear, I don't know. My wife has the voice. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
I've heard the voice.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
And now
Not
our
from your
listeners
wife,
will
but from mine. But,
Right.
If our listeners don't see me on the next episode, it's because I got the voice from my wife listening to this episode. So
she watches these.
be careful.
Probably not.
I think I don't know. I don't know what she does.
Mine does.
Mine does not. I've said enough things about her that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hear about this if she actually watches, and nothing. So, which is okay. That's fine. Are we ready to get to this next section?
Yeah,
Yes,
because the
I'm
next
really
section
ready.
is kind of the beginning of the big change. This stuff's starting to happen now. And is this later the same night? Is that what we're
think so,
assuming?
yeah.
It's
so
5 days later.
So is this
5 days
basically
later?
the dinner party?
It's 5 days after the dinner party.
Okay.
It actually said that
I believe you. You don't have to find it.
Yeah, I believe it too. I didn't know if this was because
it was a couple nights after, because
Okay.
the night after the dinner party was when
Duncan?
Duncan comes in. So
Okay,
this
so
is
that
several
was
nights after that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So, clearly, if you've read this before or you're watching this, we've alluded to the fact that things are going south here pretty quick, and you can almost tell it.
Well, Herbert.
Well,
told us
yeah.
it's gonna happen.
We weren't sure when, and it happens pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But when you think back, there was some foreshadowing at the dinner party. He's like, "Oh, my son, he's up there talking and holding his own. He's going to be a great ducal heir," and he assumed his father's seat when Leto left. And in this section, Leto's like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go talk to Chezka. I'm going to tell her I never suspected her. It was just a ruse. Everything will be right." He was really pumped about this decision, and then
Yep. He hears a noise down the hall and goes to investigate and finds. Does he find the
smuggler.
guard first?
It's the smuggler.
Or the smuggler.
I liked that guy.
I know. You always like the
I
scoundrels,
do.
though.
My kids called me a Sith Lord tonight because I was mean.
Were you
No,
using
I
the voice?
Were you talking in only absolutes?
Yes,
Yes.
as a matter of fact.
Okay.
The Sith deals in all absolutes.
Yeah, and then we come across Mapes, and that bums me out because I really liked Mapes.
I know.
I did too.
But this is.
But then he gets a tap on the shoulder. Basically, it's actually some sort of neurotoxin, I assume, that slowly paralyzes him, and it is Yueh. It's the guy that they said it could never be.
Right. And it's interesting because, like, you know, reading this, your assumption's always like, okay, well, he's an unwilling participant. He doesn't want to do this. He's going to do it from the shadows and try to avoid a face-to-face, but we get that face-to-face. And he's actually using Leto to get to Harkonnen.
He wants to kill the heart. He wants to kill the Baron. And, you know, he blames the Baron for his wife's death and has this immense hatred for them.
Yeah.
But he also tells the Duke that he is, you know, although he regrets what's happening to the Duke, he's going to save Chezka and Paul. and then he's going to give the Duke a chance to have revenge on the Baron in his last breath, literally. Right. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose
there's a line.
I suppose if you're going to go out, that's not a bad way to go out.
There was a line in here that I underlined, and I don't know if it. Well, I'll just read it and then I can talk about it. But Yueh lowered himself to one knee beside the Duke. I made a Shaitan's bargain with the Baron. I was thinking, isn't Shaitan the name of the Dark One, or the Wheel of Time? Isn't that the name that they use? So I've never heard it anywhere else, and I never made. I think I probably haven't read this since the last time I read Wheel of Time. So, then seeing that name, it's just an unusual one. So I didn't know if there's any.
Yeah.
If Shaitan actually has meaning outside, I didn't look it up, and I should have. But
so. Shaitan was originally the Fremen word for the powerful embodiment of evil, such as the devil or a demon. Not surprisingly, the term was usually spoken in a tone of fear or disgust, and to a lesser extent, it was also a name given to the sandworms of Arrakis. So, I thought I remembered the sandworm reference, but yeah.
But I think it's an interesting choice that Jordan made then to use the same word as an embodiment of evil in the Wheel of Time.
Well, I mean, he clearly paid homage to authors he looked up to, like when Rand used the fake name Underhill, for example. I mean,
well, and I think we talked early on about the Bene Gesserit and the Aes Sedai being, very similar in nature, and and then when you talk about the male half of the One Power in the Wheel of Time, and then Paul being the Messiah, similar to Rand. I mean, there's obvious parallels, but I guess I hadn't, until I read that word, it's like, oh man, it makes sense, but it was just kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, now we're left with Leto basically on his deathbed. We know something's going to happen to Paul and Chezka, but Yueh's promised to shepherd them to safety.
Yep. He's got a new
tooth to kill the Baron with, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of a cliffhanger to leave us on.
Yeah.
It's kind of cruel.
But next time, we will see what happens to Paul and Chezka. We will see if they're truly shepherded to safety, or if the Harkonnens win out. I think if the Harkonnens win out, the book would be a lot shorter than it is.
But my guess is, if I had to guess, so in my copy of Dune, I'm on page 262. This chapter, and they're 875 pages. I'm guessing they don't make it clean away either.
Yeah.
I just had to guess.
No, and basically what Herbert has divulged to the reader is it's almost all the prologue of everything that's going to happen, and then the story really takes off with kind of what happens after the Harkonnens pull this trap. Yeah. So, so there's a lot that's coming that he hasn't even begun to foreshadow yet. There's a few things he's foreshadowed.
Got about 2/3 of the book left, so.
Yeah.
All right.
But he hasn't overtly said what's going to happen beyond this. So,
yeah,
anyway.
you can check the description of the video below. That will tell you which sections we're reading for next time. Please sound off in the comments. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your impressions. If you like this, if you didn't like this, what you think of the book so far if you've never read it. And if you have read it, we'd love to hear your insights as well. The subscribe button is down there. The like button is down there. We'd appreciate it if you mashed the heck out of those things. And we will see you next week for the next section of Dune by Frank Herbert. Have a great night, everybody.
Allons-y.